Hello, looks like we're live. Welcome back to Roaring Pixels. Namaskaram. In this episode, we will continue with our sculpt of the lion, starting with the scapula and the front legs. So here goes. Before I begin, I just wanted to bring to your attention where I got my reference. I mean, you can see that I drew my own sketch in the background, which is available on my coffee page, but there's a really beautiful resource that I really need to let you know about, and this is the Line Anatomy for Artists by Monica Zagrobelna. I'm not sure I pronounced that right, but you can see how beautiful her drawings are and how clear anatomy is. This is what I took my inspiration from. I needed to have this more orthographic, which is why I drew my own version, which is more orthographic, and those two legs are together. But this is how typically it is drawn when you're studying anatomy, and this one has all the names of the different bones as well, and it's so simplified and really clear the shapes of the bones, and that's what I really love about it. And you can also see she drew all these muscles, different layers of muscles, like layer one, layer two, and so on. And what we will end up sculpting is may not be all of these layers because we only do need it from a CFX perspective, the actual muscles that we see here. So yeah, anywhere we get some gaps between muscles, we'll go to the layer underneath. The point is to try and sculpt only the visible muscles for this project that I'm doing. But if you really want to know the anatomy inside out, this is a really good resource. And yeah, totally recommend bookmarking this page from her. And if you end up using any of her work directly, I think you may be allowed, but I would suggest you just PayPal me her and let her know just in case. And I would also recommend getting her anatomy course, animal anatomy. I probably will get it myself at some point because I really like her style, how she simplifies stuff, and I want to see what I can learn from it. So yeah, that's out of the way. Let's continue the sculpting. Mm, Right, for this, what I what I like to do is start with one of the curve brushes for the scapula. There is these curve quad fill. This might do it. So if I draw a curve just around that shape there and leave it, it will create that shape. And going to the front view, I can adjust the brush size, make it a little thinner, and then using the move brush, just move it around so I've got two scapulae. And once again, just going to line this up to see. Yeah, that's fine. So now that that's done, I'm just going to delete the curve in curve functions, and then uh, Dynamesh, where are you? There you are. And just do a little. I may have to sm smooth it out a little bit, and then Dynamesh, and then boom, it's Dynameshed. It's pretty high res. Maybe I should bring it down a bit for this subtool. Also, where is it? When did we make this again? I forgot which subtool I was on. Yeah, it's this one. We shall split by group. Split, group split. No, don't want to do that because the tails are all different groups. Let's just mask this and split unmasked. So now we have our own subtool. So for some reason it's not visible. There. So now going back to Dynamesh, maybe 500 is good enough. I'm going to Dynamesh it. I think that's okay-ish. So if I smooth it, maybe less than that. Yeah, that's enough. That's enough resolution. And I'm going to first of all move it from this angle. So for the scapula, we're gonna really flatten the top bit, but it got a little bit of a curve. Perhaps we should have adjusted the curve itself when it was in the curve mode, but I just like to use a big move brush and adjust it because it's never the same in all angles. So it's pretty straight here, so let's bring that in like that, and then it comes out in the middle bit. Okay, so at the bottom it comes out because it needs to join to the front legs. So this will have a nice base that joins to the humerus. So let's let's sculpt this guy. Just get trim dynamic. First of all, trim it. Okay. When it does that, it just means that auto masking, back facing needs to be turned on. You can use the smooth as well when you're shaping it. Now I can solo it because I don't need to see the other bones. I'm just flattening the sharp edges so it doesn't look so unnatural. And once I get a nice flat base, I can sculpt the middle, the spine thing that it's got. So there's like a spine that runs along the scapula. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so for that, I can get clay build up, uh, alpha 6. So I want quite a few layers. Let's go across. When you want to build a lot on top of a already sculpted layer, always go across like this. It'll just, you know, build really quickly. And then once it's built, you can then go along again like that, and then average it out by sculpting as necessary. Perhaps I should have just masked this region and pulled it out, but never mind. I can do that now. So just mask this area because this is all we care about right now. Invert the mask by clicking Control Alt to erase some of this, Control Alt again on the other side. And now uh, I can use the move brush to pull some of these details out. So that is okay-ish. So let's Dynamesh. And then now I need to shape this. So this bit goes inside. So click Alt and sculpt inwards. So we end up getting a little nose. And then you can go back to the move brush, pull it out. Dynamesh, and there you have it. From this angle, maybe tweak it. So we have something that looks like a scapula. Now, so in this, I mean, this is one of the really most important bones of any creature, especially a lion. The amount of muscle and weight that this carries when it's walking, we want to really think of how powerful this is. So it has like a big side to at the top and it tapers to the bottom. And I think it sort of comes down a little bit on this side like that. And this spine itself is never like really straight, so it has a bit of a curve going on like this. And goes outward at the bottom. You can also use a pinch brush to narrow it down a bit. Where's P? Pinch. And what this does is, as you can see, it sort of pinches it all together like that. So it's like very sort of narrow at the top, and overall, I think it's a lot thinner than I have it. And now I dynamesh this and flatten the side. This will look pretty good. Well, it is summer holidays, so my daughter is here and her friends come over. So if you do hear background noises and if they barge into the room, I apologize in advance. Yeah, I may want to do live streams, but it can never be at the cost of a child's time. So this is all I have to deal with. We gotta let them have their fun. Only then they let us have ours. Why is this still working on the back face? Because it's not on. Okay, while that auto saves, I just want to say welcome to anybody who's watching this live. I hope you're enjoying these videos that I'm making, and I will try and collate some of these live streams into time lapses as well. You will see in my channel that there's a playlist for time lapses. So a lot of this stuff gets added to that. So if you want like a quick overview of what the process, you might want to tune in and watch some of those time lapses. But if you want to interact or drop some comments and just grab some coffee and observe, then yeah, you can absolutely join these live streams. I try to I try to have a lot of fun sculpting, so I'm pretty sure it might rub off on some of you. Right, so really important is this bit at the bottom because this is what joins to the humerus, and as you can see right now, it's just a flat, thin nothing. So we need to make this stronger. So give it more volume. So best way to do that is stick to our clay builder, and yeah, just round it a bit. Oops. Yeah, just make it so it's pretty solid all the way through. So now when I look from the side, you see it got that drum-like shape going on. So dynamesh this, and now I want to dig in a bit. So Alt, something like that, and then give it a lip. So that's how I see it. Just trim dynamic a little bit. I think now we can go a little bit higher with the resolution to give it some nice sheen to the sculpt. When you're shaping your bones or any form, you're better off keeping your resolution as low as possible. But once you have your shapes and you're detailing like I am now, you can go a bit higher. It just makes it easier to move a low resolution mesh than a high one. That's the only reason, really. Just want to make sure it's not just too round anywhere because bones are not all that round. So you want planar forms wherever you can. Like I'm looking at this and it's so cylindrical, so I'm just flattening it from all directions like that. Okay, what else can we do with this? I think we can start our humerus next. Let's look how this is looking with the rest of the bones. Fair enough. Looks pretty okay. I think it should still cover the tallest spine. So if you look at here, if I take a big brush, move brush, and do somewhat like that. Yeah, that is nice. And overall, if also I can bring this one at the bottom and rotate it, that's how I see it, my reference. and this actually goes over there, and you have more happening, more of a wing on this side. So that's what we're gonna go with for now. And Dynamesh, just gonna bring up my reference. Yeah, that makes more sense because you have this top bit here from the neck. So yeah, I'm happy with that. Let's move on to this bottom bit, and so that we know that's where the humerus is going to start from. Bring this part down. Brilliant. And the nose can be a little bit shorter, so I'm going to push it up. Dynamesh. So for the humerus is by using the curved tube. So bring it somewhat like that because it's quite a curvy bone, and then I can adjust now the actual shape. I think yeah, we need to also tweak the scapula because we lost a little bit of work that we did on it. I'm going to quickly adjust that as well. So reduce the opacity of my spotlight and make sure it's like that. And for now, I can delete my curve. So invert the mask. So I'm now looking at just my scapula and change the shape like so. And that makes more sense. And from this angle, obviously we lost all that drum that we created, so I'm going to create that again. Clay build up, alpha 6. I know I can actually there's a way to set set up my ZBrush interface so that I don't have to always change these every time I load, but I keep just not find any time after I finish a stream to go back into ZBrush. So maybe I'll have to do it in a live stream in the future. So yeah, you see, every time I log into ZBrush, there are some things that I repeat doing. That is loading a spotlight. I don't think there's a way around it, but the backface masking and I think even the alpha brush, I could save this as a new brush, so we can always get that as default. But to be fair, it doesn't take a whole lot of time, and I never feel like I need to for my personal stuff anyway. Okay, make sure that it's got the shape from the front view. How much time does it take to do the whole CG, can you tell? Well, that depends. Like in a production settings, you wouldn't be doing a skeleton from scratch because any like any studio will have some bones already, or the artist will have even I have a lot of these brushes for the bones, so I could skip all of this process to be fair, but because I'm just doing it for fun and I also want to show the process of how I did this, I'm doing it from scratch, so it will definitely be a lot faster than what I'm doing here on the streams. But typically, something just the modeling alone of something like a lion in a production setting would take about 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks, assuming you're working full time. And then it depends what sort of creature it is. If it's a really fantasy-like creature, um, yeah, the concept artist would obviously give a lot of images to the sculpting guys, and then the sculpt shouldn't take more than 2 weeks. And then you have to obviously retopologize it, and there are many processes. When you say a whole CG creature, you're talking about a number of things like sculpting, retopology, shading, then fur grooming. It will take weeks for just one character, maybe 1 month, even 2 months. It's not unheard of. Like the Game of Thrones dragons, for example, would take a lot longer than just a lion, where you have a lot of realistic anatomy. Well, when it's a fantasy anatomy, well, obviously it will take longer. So it's really hard to say how long it exactly takes. Every project is different. But you have to give the time that it deserves to if you want good results. Mm, but yeah, if I did this lion every single day for 6 to 7 hours like a day job, yeah, it I would finish the whole skeleton in about 2 days, and then another 2 days for the maybe 1.5 days for the muscles, and then the skin would take another 3 or 4 days. And then there'll be a lot of tweaking, refining, etc. for another maybe 2 days. So I'd say 2 work weeks would be reasonable. But there are some studios that might expect you to finish it in 1 week, you know, and then you just have to, I guess, dig deep and push yourself harder. But there's so many shortcuts, that in production that you can use, that it is possible to do it quickly, but not too quickly. Like the entire skeleton could be finished in a matter of 2 or 3 hours if you're using skeleton brushes. I have a course on Udemy for mastering CG creatures where I do exactly that. I use a human skeleton as a base to create the chimpanzee skeleton. So the whole skeleton was done in a matter of hours. So you may check that out. It should be in the description if you want to check it out. Anyway, back to focusing on the humerus. So again, it's all good. I'm just going to make sure it's dynameshed and then smooth out in the middle so it narrows. Also lose the topology on that. Yeah. So CG creatures is all about patience. I mean, these days we have AI to help us with some base meshes, but they can't create production ready meshes yet. So it's still quite in demand to really know your anatomy. So this is the humerus bone, and it has this shape like a drum that matches the scapula above. So it really like attaches to that. So there'll be some ligaments and stuff in the middle and tendons. So which is why we leave a little bit of a gap for them in the middle. So mainly, there's this very distinct head that it's got. So it goes like that and shapes around, and that's what I want to capture. Yeah, you're welcome, Uma. Is it you, Umesh? Is it my cousin, Umesh? Yeah, CG, the mantra is simple. The more detailed and more realistic you make the skeleton, everything else follows. If you take this process lightly and say, nobody's going to see the skeleton in the movies, I'm just going to do a very basic one, well, you'll run into problems. Your animation and every stage is going to suffer if you take this phase lightly. And it's not just about modeling a CG creature, you have to think about how this is going to animate, how this is going to move. So understanding anatomy, the bones, the muscles, and actually sculpting them is really the key to Hollywood style visual effects. I'm sure you all saw plenty of breakdowns where they show you a creature and then they show the bones and the muscles that they built, and that's the purpose of it. So to show that they really did their research and then they use that in their animation. All right, now here the bottom one, we need to make it so it has that drum-like, drumstick-like shape. So wider on the sides and then I could use the dam standard to like cut a line here in between. And then smooth it out a little bit. That's it, because that's where the the elbow sits in this gap here. This gap is like a groove for the elbow to sit because it kind of rotates around this bone. There's a lot of rotation that happens. So take the build up brush again to round it the forms a little and trim dynamic to flatten and give it that mechanical shape. And there are areas where I do simplify a little bit because I don't need it to look like super organic, super realistic, but it needs to make sense and help the locomotion of the creature. So now comparing with my reference, so I could uh, scale this down a bit in this direction, lock it there. So that's where it ends. And then the next bone comes in. So now with the move brush, I can, if I want to shape it a little bit more, and there's the humerus. From the front, it is rather straight, but slightly inwards. So if I take my trim dynamic, just trim it a little bit more, and move this slightly inwards, so there's a little bit of a curve, like that, from there. So if I ever want to hide all the other bones, I can simply click solo in ZBrush and it just isolates the bone that I'm working on. So that looks good. Let's move on to the next set of bones. So the lower legs have two bones, which you can see in our own forearms. One is the radius and the other is the ulna. The ulna is the one that's got our elbow in it. So when we touch our elbow, the elbow comes from the ulna, one side of the ulna. And the radius is the one that is the twisty, very twisty bone that allows us to rotate our forearm. So let's do the radius first. And once again, best way to start is using the curve tube because these are very tubular forms. And I'm going to draw something like that and reduce my brush size to make it thinner and then give it some overall shape. Doesn't matter if it's not too perfect because we'll be sculpting it. We are way off. Never mind. So stroke, delete stroke, move brush, move it. So from the side, it's if you look at our reference, it's more or less there. So yeah, so take the move brush and maybe bring it this way. Okay, so you can see we got that twisty, bendy bone base already. So now we can sculpt the shapes. Um, so this one digs into the humerus a little bit. I think we may have to reshape the humerus's end a little bit here for this to sit properly. So right now this part is a bit rounded, but actually there's a little bit of a dip that goes inward like that. And then you may round it a little bit there. So just to be safe, I'm going to split this by groups. So subtools, split by group split. Okay, and that will split that into a separate group, separate subtool, sorry. And so once this is dynameshed from the front, I can now take the dynamic to make it more bone-like. And once again, dynamesh. Fill in so it's more like that. And flatten some of these bits so it's not too sharp. And now we're ready for the radius. So dynamesh and then we start. Move. As you can see, there are a number of different ways to create the same shape. Previously, I was using the clay buildup to just add clay to this, but in this case, I just moved these so they get that Y shape. And same with the bottom part. So this has a, remember this bottom here, it has that little, I don't know what you call it, you know, that bone that protrudes out on our ankles on the inside. So this need to be shaped so it can do that. So it'll be something like this. And then this part also comes out. So let it auto save. So yeah. Okay, I'm glad some of you are enjoying the stream. Just drop your comments or questions if you have. Okay, that autosave is done. So back to trim dynamic. Now I'm going to just give some flatness wherever I can. Just make sure I've dynamesh that. So every time you pull your shapes apart, you'll want to dynamesh, so it recalculates the resolution and evenly distributes points on the geometry, and that will help with some smooth sculpting. So from the back, we need to curve this neatly. It needs to come out like a easy curve. Right, so the bottom needs to be moved so a little bit so it's straight. And this part is the one that comes down, so it goes this way, the line. So now dynamic. So that's the radius, basic shape of the radius. This could have more rounded form here, so it looks stronger. From the back, I think, yeah, there's a little bit of a flatness that goes here. Yeah, like that. And yeah, it doesn't need any more detail than that. Now for the ulna. So another really important bone. So these two bones are so crucial when we rig the model, and how the forearm gets its twist from. This is what dictates that. These two bones, radius and the ulna. Okay, so that looks good. So now for the ulna, I'll do the same. That's it. So from the front, the end should actually be on the other side of the, oops. So reduce the brush size. Okay, it does move a bit weirdly. So in the stroke menu, the curve, if I say bend end as well, I think that might help. Let's see. Yeah, yeah, that's what I wanted. And there. So you see how it crisscrosses? Oops, really squishy here. Um, let's pull it out and then pull it back down. That's better. Really neat brush, the stroke ones. And we may delete the stroke. Curve functions, we're done with you. And shall we keep this as one part? Same bones. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, let's leave it as same subtool. Ah, no, what? You know what? Let's keep it separate. Sometimes, even with the groups option, let me tell you. So with this Dynamesh, you have this group option. The groups is meant to keep the different groups separate. But sometimes, if I try it now, you might see that it doesn't separate it. Like it might join here. Let's say Control W so clearly. So I've just given the group a different color. If I dynamesh this now, can I move? They are separate. That's fine. So we'll leave it as the same subgroup in that case. Yeah, that's why we have the groups enabled. But if it doesn't work, you might want to separate it into another subtool. Okay, so move topological. So when it's quite low res, I like to use move topological because it doesn't grab the other object, only the one you're clicking on. Whereas if I used move and then with the big brush if I went, you can see how it moves the other object. So that's the difference. And this is a very interesting bone. It's got some weird shaping. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So it, this part will need to be behind the bone because that becomes the elbow. And then you have this, so it just sort of curves. So this is why we created this groove for it to sit in. And then this is, we bring it all in a bit. And then there's this part here. I'm going to turn off poly lines and hide the other one. So that's the one that sits on this part of the drum. So the heads of these bones sort of attach to each other, which means you get this little curve thing. So if I take trim dynamic, I'll be trimming it this way. There. See, and maybe give it some more volume on this side. So let's do a solo. So it does have to come out a little bit. I think that's good enough for now. Okay, now, so overall, this one is quite wider at the top and then tapers down to a thin shape. So bring it out a little bit this way. And even on from the side, we need to give it more volume, like here, and then taper. So I can use the smooth so it tapers. There, and I get that shape. So with this bone, it goes opposite. So this side is lower, I mean higher, and this is lower. I think that's how it is. Let me check my reference. Yeah, so when you look at it from behind, this needs to be raised a little bit, like that. So we can raise the resolution now. There we go. Just wanted to remind you guys, I do have a course on Udemy, Master CG Creature Creation, where I show how to create a chimpanzee. I think it is in the description of this video. If not, I'll add it after the stream ends. And yeah, it can. There I show you how you can use a human skeleton that comes with ZBrush. So when you go to the Lightbox, and if you look at projects, there's a Ryan Kingsline's skeleton project, or is it tool, not project, tool. Um, Tool. So you see here, you got this human skeleton of a woman. You can use that instead of creating the bones yourself, you can use those bones as a base and sculpt your creature that way. And I show how to do that in that course. And you may want to check that out in the description. It's called Master CG Creature Creation on Udemy. So yeah, you might want to check that out just in case. Or just if you're interested in actually the anatomy, understanding how the bones work and want to create it from scratch, then you can obviously take advantage of this stream. Okay, see, so these two, if I reveal the other bones, yeah, we only have to move it a little bit inside the group on this side. So that crisscrossing, that's what helps it. There's a lot of muscle that wrap these two bones. So when it moves, you see those forearms, they jiggle a lot. I mean, this is a lion, so it has some serious muscles that go around it. And this is what we're doing here. Hang on, why is one side looking taller than the other? Oh no, it isn't. That's good. Okay, so that's radius and ulnar, and I can see here it's too flat at the bottom. We need to bring that out so it covers the volume. So let's do that. So for that, I'm going to again solo. So we can just use the build up brush to bring some of the geometry out. And then once it's out, I can use the move to move topological to shape it further like that. So it should be pretty, you see those curves. Always the ends have to be very strong because they have all those ligaments and tendons that attach to the next bone in the hierarchy, and they're not strong and they look very weak. You can imagine like my wrists, which are very weak, they just snap in two pretty easily. So, so if you, it's almost common sense that you see something so weak, you know that that's something wrong with that. Okay, so there you go. And obviously, that little circle that I drew in my reference, that's all the tarsus bone. So technically, according to my reference, at least, we need it to be a little bit higher. So a little bit smaller, something there. So then it attaches to the tarsus bones. So that's radius and ulnar done. So for the tarsus and the rest of it, we will borrow it from our back leg because it's very similar in anatomy. So Alt click. So I'm now looking at that subtool, and what I can do is make sure I'm in the side view, take the move brush, and make sure that the rotation is reset so it's pointing straight, because we had that issue earlier in the stream. If any of you are still here, duplicate. Oh, sorry. Why is that? That's not the tool I want. That is not the tool I want. There, okay. So these are all, as you can see, separate bones, right? So I need to get to this bit. So that's the tarsus. So let's borrow first the tarsus alone. So I'm going to quickly save my project because, as you know, we had a crash earlier in the stream, so don't want to risk it. Anyway, what I'm trying to do while it saves is I'm going to get each of those bones from the back leg, duplicate them, and then separate those into their own subtools, and then see how much of it we can just borrow without any extra work. This is the ZBrush app, so let me type that in the chat. Okay, so it is called ZBrush. However, you don't have to use ZBrush for sculpting it. You can do it in Blender for free. Blender is a free software. The reason I'm using ZBrush is A, because I paid for the license for a whole year and I want paisa vasool, you know. So I want to get my money's worth back. And B, because it's industry standard, and it is useful to learn any software that's being used by the professionals in the industry, right? Because when you do your projects and somebody asks a question, how did you do it? And you say, oh, I've done this in ZBrush, they know that you know how to use ZBrush, which is the software that they use. So it's always advantageous if you can afford a license, even for a month, because ZBrush offers now a monthly subscription. So if you're doing just one sculpt, just get a month's subscription and then sculpt whatever it is you want to sculpt and then export it as an OBJ, and you can continue in Blender. So I strongly recommend like anybody who wants to sculpt, although you can do this in ZBrush for free, I mean, sorry, Blender for free, just get 1 month subscription to just learn ZBrush so that you can say to people that, hey, I can do the same in ZBrush or ZBrush. I mean, I call it ZBrush because the original company, Pixelogic, when this used to be with Pixelogic, they're an American company and they used to say ZBrush. Obviously, in the UK, we like to call it ZBrush, but I'm in the habit of calling it ZBrush. Yeah, it is quite simply the best sculpting software. It's an industry standard. Some people argue that 3D code is a little bit better. Maybe it's good in some aspects, but overall, for different needs, especially for film and TV, for decades now, there's simply no competition to ZBrush. So yeah, it's saving, and I have to just wait and can do nothing about it. So sorry, guys. But yeah, I don't care. I mean, autosave literally saves my life every single time, so I let it do the quick saves. There's nothing worse than doing 2 hour sculpt because you get too engrossed in the process, you forget to save. So without the quick save, if it crashes, that's 2 hours of hard work just down the drain. So my advice is, yeah, respect the quick save, let it take its time, don't argue with it. Right now, subtool, I'm going to split, unmasked, and never leave your subtools like this. I mean, this is just bad way of working. I will at some point have to go through each and every one of these subtools and rename them correctly, which I will, I promise. But maybe not in a live stream, maybe separately. Split, unmasked. So now I'm back here, but I want to be here. I should have said split masked anyway. So we don't need this little bone. So I'm going to geometry, and on the modify topology dill hidden, that will delete it. So I've got my tarsus. So this is basically a carpus, not a tarsus, because it's like you have to comparatively with human anatomy, this is your hand, not the leg. So I took my tarsus. I need to convert into my carpus, and the carpus is very similar in shape. It's a combination of different smaller bones, but we don't have to sculpt every single one of these things. But I'm just going to give it a rough shape that matches the reference. And if you're wondering where I'm getting my reference, now I showed you earlier in the stream, I do have some Pinterest images that I look at, but there's also, for those who have missed it, um, this wonderful reference that was created by this artist. I'm going to show you in a minute. This one. So it's Monica, I can't say her last name, but she did this amazing, uh, yeah, drawings of the basic shapes of the skeletons and the muscles, and then finally the line there. So this is where I got my inspiration from that drawing that I did, And if you want to learn how to draw like her, that she has some awesome courses she has on her website, and you can also just donate her using the PayPal me if you found this to be useful. So just want to put that one out there. So these again sit right under. So mostly on this radius, and it shapes out that way. I can take down this dam standards to quickly draw a little shape like this, just to show that this is not one single bone, but a combination of a few. So there's a little bit of a bone that's under there. Oh, not there, sorry. Uh, this one's a bone. It does look pretty weird from the back as well, like lots of cuts to tiny bones. I don't need to be too exact because when it comes to the CFX stuff and even sculpting the skin, this is not the most helpful bone. We're going to simplify this into one piece of geometry anyway. Okay, so that's the caprus, or carpus, sorry, not caprus. And I think it can be a little bit shorter that way. So just checking the stream stats. Is the stream still you're working? Good. Looks like it is. Yeah, sometimes I get lost in my sculpting, and then it happened, I think, on my first or the second stream. Second stream, I was sculpting away, and then realized the stream just ended or crashed or whatever. Something happened, and I've had to, yeah, skip a little bit of that. I think when I was doing the rib cage. So I came back in the next stream, and people were like, "Oh, you did something offline." No, I didn't. But yeah, the stream just crashed. Anyway, so don't want to do any more than that for now for that. But as we were doing earlier, let's just come back to these. So for the fingers, the metacarpals, we just do the same. So control, drag, and here we say subtool split. Oh, I'm under geometry, not geometry, subtool. And I used to have a shortcut to this. So all my I need to change my UI. So I think it's on my other PC, the UI file. So basically, what if you customize your UI, you can use a hotkey to bring up all of these split ones in one separate menu. I'll do that before my next stream. So mask points. Okay, yeah. Now we have our metacarpals just like that, and like to do the same with the rest of it. So here I've got the other finger bones. Phalanx, they're called phalanx. I can't pronounce them, but I think they're called phalanx. So Alt, no, Control, drag them across. Phalanx, phalanx, whatever you are, you can sit there for me. This will also ensure that the both feet are grounded. So if I sculpt it by hand, I might have them a little bit, further down or further up. I did that, I think, with my dog sculpt, which is in my Ko-fi page, by the way. If you want to purchase the dog anatomy, so yes, let's bring this guy across. Oops, not like that. First lock it, Control, and then split mask points and make sure he is frame it. And yeah, that sits right under there. That's good. Frame again. Alt these nails. Control drag across and split mask points. Frame and adjust. Maybe it can be over there like that. Obviously, the front legs do have another digit that the hind legs don't. We'll have to do that separately. But I'm also going to get these pads. About there will do. Frame, frame again. No, sorry, split mask points, then frame. To get a close up. And you can see they're not lined up correctly. Oh, my pad's not right. Oh, it's okay. Should they be a bit wider? I wonder. So yeah, we may have to adjust that later on. Never mind for now. That's pretty cool. So we need to create that digit. One digit that comes from here. So best thing is to just duplicate one of these bones. So let's say mask that and move it in place. Control and drag like that. And scale it. So shorter, much shorter than that. I think that's okay. Does go a little bit back, but not all that back. So vertical, more or less there. And I can simply now duplicate this one. Actually, make sure this is a separate group. So Control click, so invert the mask, Control W. Now that's its own group. And now I can go to this fella and do the same. So Control mask, reveal everything. Control click again to invert the mask. And then, oops, what did I do? Let's see. Ah, these are all still the same subgroup of the back ones. Anyway, solo. So we need to split these into their own groups. So I'm going to mask all the back ones, split mask points, so they're gone. Okay, just going to check I didn't create any extra digits at the back. No, I haven't. That's good. So now control click, rotate. Not that much, maybe that much. Scale. So we need this to be even smaller than that. So I think I can't see clearly in my reference, but yeah, it's just it, it just goes straight down. We are going to tweak it, sculpt it in a bit. Okay, like that. At this point, I'm just putting some geometry. We will have to sculpt it in shape. And Alt click, remove. Just solo to make sure they're isolated. Yeah. So control click the last one, reset, and then control drag to duplicate. Go back into visible mode and bring that across like that. I think it goes even higher, something like that. Maybe a little bit of a bend. So that's the extra digit. So let's go and shape it a little bit. Clay build up. Trim dynamic. Clay build up again. Just make it like a generic bone shape. Also, if you control click it, just mask everything else. So you're not gonna influence the other bones. Yeah, you can absolutely do in Blender. That's the point. You can absolutely follow. Yeah, Blender, you can do all of this in Blender. There's no doubt about that. The workflow, the principles are the same. I mean, the way you, instead of, I mean, you won't have the exact brushes in Blender, but you have very similar ones. So for trim dynamic, there's a brush in Blender that's very similar to that. And the same, the standard brush is same as the standard, yeah, I mean, it's called draw in Blender. So Blender You can go in the sculpt mode, add different objects, and then sculpt away the same way you're doing in ZBrush. So if you want to learn sculpting, you don't have to get ZBrush right away. If you just want to learn the art of sculpting, I recommend you just use Blender to understand the fundamentals and get a hang of the sculpting process. But what I meant earlier was you must try and do one portfolio piece at least in ZBrush, just so you can show to the potential recruiters if that's what you want to do, just to show that you can um, take your own like sculpt in ZBrush and hold your own. But if you're doing for personal projects or any indie productions, Blender is really good. I mean, there's some things about Blender where it just cannot handle millions of polygons the way ZBrush can. So if you, for really high-end cinematic creatures, I don't know how good Blender can be, but it is worth trying. And I might do one in the future, a character solely in Blender, sculpting to all the way to the finish. But in production, it's horses for courses. You must have the best app for the best job, for the job in hand, rather. And ZBrush, hands down, is the best sculpting tool. And that's exactly why it's always used in top studios for production. There are many great tutorials on YouTube on how to sculpt in Blender. There's a character creation guy. I can't remember the channel name now, but if you'd like, I can leave a link in the description after this stream if you're interested in sculpting in Blender. But once you have the fundamentals, once you've learned how to sculpt in Blender, you can just follow along this stream to practice anatomy and such. So there's nothing stopping you from learning to sculpt or creating your creature just because you don't have the budget to buy ZBrush. You don't have to buy the license. Just open Blender, sculpt something. The concepts are the same. I mean, if you saw this stream so far, what I'm really doing, if I want to sum it up, I'm duplicating subtools. I'm using the two brushes mainly, the clay buildup and the trim dynamic, and then just shaping things in shape, like using the move brush to move the sculpt around. And you can do that in literally any software that supports sculpting. The only issue you'll have is whether that software can handle the amount of polygons that like ZBrush can. And Blender is something that's continuously improving. And yeah, I have done some pretty high res stuff in Blender, and definitely worth trying it if you haven't. And you can absolutely create a whole skeleton and muscles and the entire CG creature inside Blender. But the reason I'm using ZBrush, like I said before, because I do have a license, and for now, because I paid for it, I've got to use it, right? And also because it is industry standard, and there's no harm in working in an industry standard software. Because a potential recruiter might be watching and they know that you can handle ZBrush. That's a big bonus, right? Okay, so I'm happy with the shapes of the bones. I mean, this one, to be fair, looks very plasticky. Didn't give it so much love, but yeah, I mean, this was the purpose of the stream, is to try and finish the front legs, and I'm going to do one last sense check before we end the stream. And in the next one, we will proceed to the neck and the skull. So let's just check our proportions. Yeah, it looks hang on a minute. Now, yeah. Okay, so that looks pretty awesome. I'm happy with that. I mean, there's some things I can fix in the pelvis and the ribs. How about we do that before we end the stream so we can move ahead. Let me just reveal my tail so it's not missed out. Yeah, okay. Right, with the rib cage, it's just a little bit all over the place. I mean, these ends are too curvy and this one is too straight. I want them all to have a little bit of a curve and not be straight at any point. Yeah. I'm obviously having fun because this is a personal project and taking my own sweet time. But in production, I'll probably move my brush, my hands a lot faster. And also because I won't be giving any commentary, it just runs a lot faster than this. Just a disclaimer. Okay. I think that one flows a bit more naturally. Okay. And with the pelvis, this the pubic bone must come further down actually. So if we isolate this just for a second, hide the reference, and you look at it from the front view, there's actually this bone here. In fact, I may have to hide some of the other geometry. So let's hide this guy and also take the lasso. I'm going to hide all of that. And that pubic bone, it needs to have more shape, something like that, I think. And from the front, come down. So and because it lost all the geometry, I'm going to sculpt a little bit. Just reveal everything, Dynamesh again. Well, no, actually, I got that wrong. I mean, that's fine, but that's not the only bit that needs to come down. So I'm going to. So there's a whole shape that actually is missing in there. That's the problem. Uh, So, so take solo again. There's a whole part that I kind of skipped, but that's not all that important. I just want to get this side correct. You see the pelvis, it has like these two holes, so I didn't create the geometry for that. But what I'm looking for really is something that comes down like that. So if you look at our reference, you'll see in a minute. So you have all of that coming forward. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I don't want to move all of that. That can still be there. Move topological and bring it forward like that. that would make more sense, I think. So in another lesson, I'm going to finish this properly. But for today, at least we sorted that part. It needs to come down. But what we need is something of a bridge and those two holes to make it look like an actual pelvis. 'Cause at the moment, it really doesn't look like a good pelvis. So okay, let's leave that for another day. Um, and we'll come and study this pelvis in detail after we've well, in fact, we'll probably start with this pelvis and then move on to the neck and the skull. So let's reveal everything. Just have a one final look at everything we've done so far, everything I've done, and you've kindly joined me. So there, that's it. And let me go orthographic. Happy to have done this stream today, and really glad that so many of you have joined today. I think this is the first time I had over 100 views, and I think also that at some point we had 8 concurrent viewers. So clearly it's getting some steam. That's good to know. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining, and we shall continue in the next stream, which is most likely gonna be either on a Saturday or Sunday, but if not, definitely next Wednesday. So yeah, that's it from me, and goodbye.